Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from fresh perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 264, Trusting the Process. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host, and I'm here today in 818 Studios with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft. As always, I want to thank you and thank you for listening, and welcome to another episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. We hope that you've had a good weekend and are ready for just an amazing week. I'm just believing that you are going to have an amazing week, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day. Dave, did you almost go into your other show again? I thought you were about to go into your other show. I have to pull myself out of that. It's muscle memory, but no. And I say very similar things at the beginning. Because yeah, of course.
It's just how I am.
It's really interesting. I'll let our listeners in on a secret. The morning of the show, I'm always doing the intro over and over and over. And I'm imagining people in a variety of places hearing me say it, and I also try to be consistent so people go, oh, there she is, oh, time for the show.
Yeah, I do feedback videos for my students at Full Sail, and I say literally the exact same thing at the beginning of every single video, and it's almost comical if you were to play them all back to back. Like, right. Hey, student, this is Dave here, checking out your whatever. Hey, it's the same cadence, right. The same pitch, and just 11 years of doing these videos, and you just kind of get into the flow and get into the groove.
It's a groove.
And so,
Speaking of that, Dave, I have some news, and I say news. We're in process, but I think I've found us a location for a live recording again. So we're not sure when yet, but there's a place I frequent, and there's a new manager there, and they're open to having us do a live recording there. So I'm going to work out the details probably within the next week. It's amazing the amount of conversations and details to make one live event happen, but no problem. I'm happy to do it, but I was just missing our listeners. I thought it has been some time since we've done something in person. Well, it's been about a year, right? Because it was 200.
It's been over a year. This is episode 264. And so, it's been 64 weeks since we've gone live.
Exactly. That was hard for me to believe when I was thinking about it. Because I was talking to a couple of the employees. I said, yeah, we did a live recording at show 200. And I went, that was over a year ago. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, a live recording, I know, has some challenges for you, Dave, as the engineer, sound engineer, and producer. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we have a little mobile recording rig. When we use, the audio interface that you've done kind of mobile interviews on and everything. It's been great, because that gives you the opportunity to go meet people where they're at, whether it's John Two Hawks or Dr. Dorsey. And so it's really, really great that you have that.
Yeah, we've gotten some nice feedback, too, from some of those on-location interviews, even though I know sometimes you're having to struggle through a little bit of sound issues. We get so spoiled because the sound quality of the show is so good.
No,
speaking of today's show, Dave.
It's like a puzzle, it's just problem solving and, balancing and, reducing air conditioning noises and things like that. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's Monday and we're recording a little later, so we have to record before the long crew gets here. It's life in today's world.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, today's topic is called Trusting the Process. Trusting the Process.
Oh, friend, is anybody saying already? Well, I don't know. That's a good idea for you, right?
It's easy to say trusting the process, but actually trusting the process, that takes trust.
That takes trust. Well, what I think is so funny about this title, and I don't know, it must be a minister thing, all the titles I've come up with over the years. But when I was really guided to talk about this, it was like a whole seminar downloaded about this one topic. Now, as our listener, you know that so many of of you are deeply on the spiritual journey. So with these titles and these topics, I am presupposing that you've been on the journey for a very long time. So if you're new to the spiritual journey, you might say, trust what process, right? Right. Like, trust the process. What process? So what I want you to know is the process I'm speaking of is not something you can really read about in a book. It's not something really that I can tell you exactly what's next. What I can tell you, though, is that it is known within you already. And so it's really a journey to self-discovery, a journey to discovering the divine in you. But there is, in fact, a divine process that lives within you and your very own soul. So I'm not going to give you a process. You're already in it. Right. And so if you've been on the spiritual journey for long, you know, oh, yeah, I am in a process. You're in process because something's working in you that's trying to come forward. Something's working in you that is asking for your attention. Something is, on a daily basis, like in the back of your mind, like it's there trying to work out. That's the process. Right. So then how you face that, how you work with that is, trusting every step of the way. So that's what we want to talk about today. But trusting the process presupposes that there is one and that process lives within you. While you think about that, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Really, we are in a process of soul unfoldment. And I always look for places in nature that do this. And the best visual kind of nature image that works for me in this idea is the transformation from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And it can sound trite because we've heard it be used, but for me, as I imagine it, as I imagine the form changing, as I imagine the struggle from one form to another, from one that crawls to one that flies, to me, that perfectly describes the soul journey and what we are, moving into. Life is supposed to be full of fun, full of joy, full of new experiences. It's supposed to be full of grace for one another. It is designed to be challenging. So many people think that if life is challenging, they're doing something wrong. And I'm saying that's life on life's terms. So life is meant to be challenging. But what happens if you're living from, say, what our dear friend Sister Jenna calls body awareness? If you're living from body awareness, everything is a cause for anxiety. Everything is a cause for fear. But if you're living from the soul, which is what all the shows on this channel are about, basically, if you are living, seeking to live from soul, you have a different way to view some of these challenges, right? You start asking questions like, why is this here for me at this time? And that's part of the process I'm talking about. Trusting the process. That whenever you're ready, the next learning appears. We've often heard it said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? Well, life is the teacher. Life is the teacher. I had a dear friend who, runs a business. She cuts hair, and there was an issue with the salon she was working in, and she had to make a pretty quick shift and change because it was literally not a healthy environment. There was something chemical that was impacting her and clients and stuff. Anyway, long story short, she had to move salons pretty quickly. And there was nothing in her conscious mind that asked for this. But part of that process was moving her out of an environment and into a new environment where new clients started coming in, where it was a fresh energy into the business. So when the challenge was happening, she didn't know that was going to be about what the next step was about. So if you were looking in from body awareness or from the mind of what I want, well, moving is a hassle. Moving costs money. Moving makes you take time off work and organize and do all sorts of things that moving requires. But when you're living from soul, you say, well, I'm going to trust that whatever this next step is for me, that this is this way I'm supposed to go, even though I don't understand it with my mind yet. So that's what I mean. There's something deeper in you that begins to get activated as you begin to face life from the soul. And it is this deeper awareness that everything that's happening in some way is for my behalf, right? So believing that the universe actually loves you, actually supports you, so that whatever's coming up for you is exactly what's supposed to happen right now. This is trusting the process. And many of you that know me well personally know that I love the spiritual journey. I love developing different aspects of my life. Like, I really love learning new things. I always have. I'm always working on a song on guitar or piano, even though they're not my main instrument. It's interesting. My son the other day was saying, why don't you get a marimba? You know, in college, that was my main instrument. So we've been talking about where would we put a marimba? That's a good idea. So anyway, I love learning new things. I love developing myself. But for some reason, there are certain areas of my life that cannot move fast enough. I don't want a process. I don't want to have to trust it. Right? So this is why I'm bringing this show. I needed a reminder to trust the process. To trust the process, like there is a divine unfoldment in my life. And sometimes my limited self, we often call it the ego or the personality self, is very limited in the way it views the world. As Sister Jenna would say it, it's body awareness only. So I'm bringing this show to you as a reminder for myself to just trust the process. Yeah. And the issue I think we all are dealing with is that so much in our culture, and I speak about this a lot, is so instant that we think everything is going to be that way. Every sitcom is a perfect half-hour problem and solution, and we think this is how life is going to be. But we know from watching the stars that play those parts on the shows that that's not exactly how life really is. Right? Because after we see them acting those perfect little scenes on their shows, later their lives are falling apart. They're in court for years battling over money in a divorce. Life doesn't work that way. Right? So we seek to live life from the soul, which is both deeper and higher at the same time. This higher awareness, but it is deep, deep within us, in the soul, that we're seeking to live from this place. Right? So this is why, because of what I said earlier in the show, life is meant to be fun. Life is meant to be good. Life is meant to bring us a lot of joy and happiness. And yes, life is a challenge. Life is a challenge. There'll be somebody out there that will say, aren't you affirming life is a challenge? No, I'm in reality that life is a challenge. I also know that even when life is a challenge, that I can find a spiritual reason, a spiritual lesson, and I can grow through it. And challenge isn't negative. Anything you're trying to learn, there's going to be a challenge. Anything. Recently, I got a new instrument for my son. He's a violinist and played. He had gotten a new acoustic violin recently, and by acoustic I mean how we think of a violin, but he just had a birthday and got an electric violin for his birthday. So even though it's the same instrument, it's been interesting to watch that challenge of how do I think differently about this thing I played for years, right? It's really requiring a new way of thinking about something he's done many, many times. And this is exactly what I mean on the spiritual journey. I'm asking you to look at life slightly differently. I'm asking you to look at life through a spiritual lens, through the lens of the soul, rather than just through the mind or the personality or the ego, through the body. No, we're meaning from the soul, trusting the process, that there's this inner knowing, this inner guide about what's next for us. So in your journey right now, the question to be asking is, what is up for me that is trying to move me forward? You know, what's up for me that's trying to move me forward? And here's what I mean. A lot of people come to me and they want to be a different place from where they are. And my first question is, tell me what's going on now. And they go, well, I don't think that has to do with where I want to go. I go, okay, so just go ahead and just talk for a minute. Tell me what's going on in your life right now. And they end up painting a picture of this whole pattern, this whole way of being, this whole way of doing that is pretty unconscious to them. So they don't realize that they're actually blocking their own process to moving forward, right? That they don't have a clear awareness of how the behaviors now are affecting where they want to go. So part of trusting the process is this deeper self-awareness, this deeper searching, this deeper knowing about where am I right now and what is coming up for me right now that I need to deal with. Because if you have a desire and something's coming up for you to deal with, then that whatever's coming up is the thing that has to be dealt with to move forward. It's basically what I like to call the archetype of awakening. You can't go to point B if you haven't dealt with point A yet. And to get to point B, what's so amazing about the soul is there's like this divine intelligence that knows what to bring up as like it gets unearthed and brought to the surface for you to then be able to move forward. And this usually requires a variety of different things that you have to do to look at. It might require therapy. It might require a physical work. It might require a teacher or mentor. It might just require 6 weeks of coaching around getting you aware on this issue, right? So trusting that process is going to require you, though, to do some work on the front end where you're saying, okay, what is coming up for me? And that's kind of what gets you in process. Does that make sense? I hope this is making sense, what I'm saying, friends. That you must deal with what's coming up right now to go to your next step. And there's always something going on. There's always something trying to present itself. Sometimes the thing trying to present itself is very subtle. Like it's not some major thing where you need therapy for 3 years. Like it's just a deeper awareness. For instance, I was recently at a store. It's a store, I'm going to get the right name for it, Dave. I think it's called like Art and Artifacts or something like that. It's in Orlando on Fairbanks. It's been there a really long time. And the owners, they have crystals, they have stones, they have coins. They just have ancient things. They have things in there that are hundreds of years old. They even had like, I don't know, petrified dinosaur eggs. It's a really interesting store. I was really guided to go there for a friend's birthday. And as I walked in, I was guided to these 3 stones. And why am I saying all this? Well, I'm saying all this because the work sometimes that we're really guided to do is working with the subtle energies. It's with the subtle energies. It may not be some major happening. It may not be, oh, I have to go deal with this, and this with a therapist or counselor. Sometimes the work is subtle. Sometimes the work is internal. And that's the trust piece, that you're going to know what to do, when, and how to do it for whatever is coming up for you right now.
Yeah, I think it's ancient artifacts and treasures.
That's it. Ancient artifacts and treasures. So now the stones I got when I was there. So here's one of them. It's super cool. Now, if you're listening, you're going to say, I want to see that. Well, you can go to YouTube. One's soapstone, one's lapis. This may be granite. I'm not sure. What I know, though, is these three stones spoke to me. Why is this important? Well, they've been serving as an anchor for me. If I have a big session with someone, if I have a big thing I'm dealing with at work, part of my work right now is working with these stones, holding them, picking up the subtle energies, seeing what I can glean from them, using these as a touchstone. So this is part of my process right now. I'm not working with a therapist every week, right? But I'm doing subtle energy work on my own because it's making me more aware. It's serving as a grounding. It is bringing new life and energy into my physical body, into my work life. Simply connecting with these stones and being aware. Simply being open to this process of my soul. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you may be going along in life and all of a sudden you're really guided to take a yoga class and you don't know why. Move forward and do that. That's going to be a part of your process. Or you're really excited about starting back up a workout routine. Sometimes the body needs to move to enhance the soul journey. The body needs to move to jumpstart your journey. The body needs to move to work out old energy. That's what I mean about trusting the process, trusting your body, trusting your soul to work with you to move you forward. That's what I mean, trusting the process. It's really about trusting your inner guidance. Trusting your inner guidance. And there are times when the mind can't always know for sure what's next. And that's where the trust comes in, that the next steps will appear. The next steps will be made manifest. And this has happened with me recently in several ways. One has happened with this new friend I made up in North Carolina. I'm so happy he's in my life. It happened with me on a work event where I wasn't sure what the next steps were, and those steps appeared. Right? And in both of those cases, had I tried to make those things happen, there's no way I could have made them happen. As a matter of fact, I would have gotten in the way of the flow of spirit bringing this energy to me. And I'll give you an example. So we were up in North Carolina a couple months ago, and I mentioned it because we go every year, and it's a very special family time. And I always stay in the home that was my great-grandmother's and then my great-aunt's, right? The man who bought it in 1978 and has owned it ever since. And it's a hostel. Well, it's really an inn, right? Sometimes some people call it a hostel for hikers on the Appalachian Trail. It's really an old style inn. Anyway, when he knew we were going to come again, because all of my family, most everyone in my family is a musician, the owner decided to invite his friend who has his doctorate in harpsichord and I think his master's in organ performance. And he happens to be a music director at one of the oldest churches in the country, and also became ordained. And he's the exact same age as my brother, just older than me, who also is an organist and a very accomplished musician. So having said that, when I arrived, I had no idea any of this was going on. But I walked in and I was greeted with this beautiful energy of this man. And of course, we became friends. we rehearsed together. We performed together the next day. We've stayed in contact. He was actually on sabbatical, but it was amazing how the universe knew exactly what I needed and provided it at a place where I had no idea it was going to be happening. In addition to when I was there was another man who had been there. He had come through years ago as a hiker and comes back several times a year to help the owner. There's like a lot of incredible men that the owner of the inn has kind of mentored and supported over the years, and they support him. Well, anyway, this gentleman works as he works at a faith-based solar company and asked me to come do inspirational speaking at his company. So here, all I was doing, I thought, was going on a family vacation. I was, driving, to get there and tired. And I was just met with all this beautiful energy of love, of connection, of opportunity. And all I knew was that I was really guided, and I look forward to it every year, all year, this event. And so it felt like a real unexpected blessing from the universe that I could show up for my family and then have all this other blessing, new friends, new opportunities, fun connections with family that I rarely see. But now this has become a time of sharing, a time of joy and opportunity. And none of that could have been planned. But because I was listening to my inner guidance about the importance of the trip, I was listening to the rhythm of my own soul, knowing that is a place of reset for me, that I need to go back there and just remember who I am. And we talked about that, last show so much about, I think it was called The Real Me or something like that, that I get such a reset there. I'm so at home and at peace in the mountains. And it was just a beautiful outpicturing. So why am I going on about this? Because I never could have imagined this in my mind and personality. And so that's what I mean about trust. If you're being guided in a certain direction that is good for you, that is good for the people around you, you can pretty well trust that it is from spirit. Right? And then see what goodness starts to unfold for you. And as you do this, the good news is that you start to get pretty good at discerning the voice of spirit in you, discerning the voice of soul rather than this is what my ego wants, blah, 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 And it was so interesting to me that several people that I met were really on a deep journey of their own, spiritually, emotionally, their self-awareness. And that even though my family was there, and even though I had great connections with them, the deepest connections were with people I had just met because we were on a similar journey. And somehow we met, right? Somehow we met in the middle of the mountains at Sunnybank Inn that was built in 1840, that my family has owned near, it's been in existence nearly 200 years. Amazing. 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 Trust the process. Trust the process. So I tell you these stories because so you can see I don't, quote unquote, know what is next. I don't. Nobody does. I didn't predict COVID. I can tell you that. Right? I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but what I do 100% trust is if I am guided in a direction, I am going to move forward. And the ego, always wants to come in and start judging and everything. Trust the process, my friend. Trust the process. I know you're being guided. I know you're being supported. And it doesn't just work for me. I know because of the thousands of people I've worked with over the years, when they begin to trust, they begin to see the universe really is working on my behalf, right? The universe really does love me. I really am coming into my own self, my own way of being in a way I haven't before when I listen to the voice of my soul. So this is my hope for you. This is my prayer for you, to trust the process, my friend. Trust the process. And know that we're lifting you up. If you get a little bit discouraged, go back and listen to some old shows. Go on YouTube where you can connect with us visually, right? Listen to inspiring music. Let yourself get re-inspired to keep moving forward and keep trusting the process. This is our hope and prayer for you. So as always, we thank you for listening. We are so blessed that you join us, and that certainly that you support us. So many of you give online by going to experienceofthesoul.com or CynthiaAliceAnderson.com and hitting donate. Thank you, my friend. When you do donate, remember that your donation is tax deductible. We partnered with another organization so that you can get a benefit other than spiritually, other than good karma. You even get a tax benefit, and that's awesome. So thank you for all the ways you give. We are always blessed and delighted that you join us for the journey. And we look forward always to bringing the show to you every week. So looking forward to next week, dear friend, and blessings on the journey.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2023, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.